ambition to basically America have a control of Iraq goes right to the top. And it's not unprecedented. And the British had got control of Iraq after the First World War. In 1930, they signed a treaty that nominally made Iraq independent. But in fact, the British kept a couple of enormous bases in Iraq, one outside Basra, another outside Baghdad. They remained a controlling influence, and they tended to delegitimize and discredit Iraqi governments because they were seen as British pawns, as British puppets. And this is one of the things which led to Iraqi politics being so violent that many people perceived that the government was made up of traitors.
In the Wall Street Journal this morning, Iraq Prime Minister gets boost with ebb and violence, showing some workers here in Sadr City cleaning up. Is Iraq, if the U.S. left, what would happen?
I think, I think the U.S. will have to leave because it's obvious that the U.S. is one of the factors generating violence, that a lot of Iraqis will fight it. It's not the only factor. And you can also say, in the short term, maybe it prevents a total explosion. But, from 2003, I remember people saying to me, I said, I think the presence of a large American army in Iraq is a key reason why we have this violence, because very simply, there are enough Iraqis who are going to fight this to make sure, and we're going to have a lot of violence, and it divides Iraqis. And people said, no, 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 if they leave, there'll be a bloodbath. So they stayed, and we did have a bloodbath. In 2006, 2007, 100 bodies were being found every day in Baghdad, and others were being buried in the desert. Now the situation is somewhat better, but you have to keep this in proportion. When you say to an Iraqi in the street, "How are things?" he says, "They're better," but they're better than a total bloodbath. But you still, so you say to him, "But so would you walk around at 12 in the evening, 10 in the evening?" No, no, I'll stay at home, because it's still incredibly violent. I wish it wasn't. I have to go around there as a reporter, and I really wish that I could do so with a greater degree of safety. It's a little bit safer, but not much. And every Iraqi tells you this could change in 10 minutes. And sometimes I've seen it change like that. There's a restaurant I used to go in one area called Al-Mansur. Not a bad restaurant. I was thinking of going, maybe it's safe enough I could go back to it. It's called Al-Samad. This was about 6 weeks ago. Then somebody sent me an email last week saying, "You lost your chance. Somebody blew it up." They blew up a police car and the restaurant caught fire and burned to the ground. So you still have an extraordinary amount of violence in Baghdad. And I think it's very dangerous, this conception that somehow things are returning to normality. They're a little better, but not a lot.
Detroit, good morning.
Good morning, C-SPAN, and good morning, Mr. Cockburn.
Good morning.
I have a question for you on Sistani and al-Sadr. And before that, I have a statement to make. You have been excellent in spinning the groupthink Western colonial masters divide and rule strategy with a little pacification now, since Iraq has a little subdued. Regarding Mr. Sadr and Sistani, it is the same divide and rule tactic that you used to invade. That is, the Shiites are all one, and the Sunnis are represented by Saddam, and the Sunnis are terrorizing the Shiites and blah, blah, blah. Now, since you have achieved your mission of recolonization of Iraq, you have a different strategy now between dividing the Shiites themselves. And let me tell you, Mr. Cockburn, are you aware of the Operation Shock and Awe bomb green zone that's coming pretty soon to smoke out all the white colonial masters in green zone and hunt them down on the streets of Baghdad and liberate Iraq? Are you aware?
Well, no, I'm not. But I think, on the question of divide and rule, there are 2 points I'd like to make. One is that Iraqis always were divided. This didn't start with the occupation. And Iraqis were more divided than they often admit. Often I meet sort of Iraqis say, look, I'm a nationalist, I'm a Sunni, I don't care if somebody's a Shia, my sister's married to a Shia. And then you say, well, what do you think about people like Sistani or Maliki, the Prime Minister, or Muqtada al-Sadr, and others? Oh, they're Iranian spies, Iranian spies. They have their sort of conception. It's a nationalism. It's a very egocentric nationalism. Shia a bit the same. You know, we're not going to do anything to the Sunni. You know, we love them. Muqtada said publicly, you know, I am a Shia in religion, but I'm a Sunni in politics. But, you know, these divisions are very real, and they've gone on for a very long time. But having said that also, if you have an outside occupier, it almost automatically, I think, increases divisions within a country. Because the minority, most countries you've got a majority and a minority, religion, politics. But if you're an outside occupier, the minority always thinks, I don't have enough cards in my hand, I'll go to the occupier and try and prop myself up. So that almost automatically increases differences. So let's say I'm a Sunni living in a street in Baghdad. I've been an officer in Saddam's army. I have a Shia across the road as a neighbor. I know he's a different community of me. But after the invasion, I lose my job. He becomes a policeman. He's not only a Shia, in my mind, but he's a traitor to the country. He has good relations with the Americans. And that increases sectarian ethnic divisions. I think even with the best will of the world, an outside power occupying a country can seldom reduce sectarian and ethnic hatred.
Did you ever meet Muqtada or his father or father-in-law?
I've sort of seen them. I didn't interview him for this. I mean, his father, this was impossible. This was under Saddam. I think I was the first person to report he was assassinated. But you couldn't do that. Muqtada, up to 2003, was kind of under house arrest. When I started writing the book, I thought, shall I go straight down? When I was first asked by the publishers, would you write a book about Muqtada al-Sadr, I thought about it very carefully and then said, no. You know, it's just too dangerous. I said, I've almost been killed by these people once. I don't even particularly blame them for it. I mean, Iraq is like that. You know, tens of thousands of Iraqis have been killed in similar circumstances that I just survived. So I said, no, can't be done. But then I thought about it more, and I thought, well, actually, I know this community quite well, and there are various means that I can maybe get to them. But I decided not to tell Muqtada or his people that I was doing it, because I still want to convey here the atmosphere of suspicion in Baghdad, and just how quickly people move from suspicion to killing the object of suspicion. I think somewhat over 200 journalists have been killed there. And I really thought, I don't want to add to those statistics. So, you know, obviously they know about it now, but I was very careful not to tell them while I was writing it.
Next call for Patrick Cockburn, Caldwell, New Jersey, Republican. Caldwell, you with us?
I am. Thank you. Appreciate the show. I must admit most of my questions have been answered. I do see, when I see pictures of Muqtada al-Sadr, he's this very brooding, very dark-looking guy, and I was wondering if that was just our news bias that publishes those kind of pictures. I guess you've somewhat answered that. I suppose he's much more human than he looks in the press. One of the things that sort of disturbed me was the woman that called in about 9/11 being an inside job. I think, you know, with all credit to Bush, I think I would have started trying to do something just like he did, but when he was elected for the second time, I voted for him because I thought maybe he'd learn something. And unfortunately, I don't think he ever did, because we're just creating new generations of militants because of our attitude towards things.
2 points there.